Now, do you miss pounding the pavements to pop in and out of your favourite stores, or have you quite enjoyed avoiding them altogether and having everything delivered to your front door?
Well, according to this week's guidance, shops may be able to open at the start of June, depending on the rate of transmission of the coronavirus. But after being closed for almost 2 months, what will life be like for retailers as lockdown loosens? Consumer champion Martin Newman is here with us in the studio to paint a picture of the new high street normal. Now, look, there are lots of guidelines have just been released. Do you have any idea what this is going to look like when we're going to be able to go shopping again?
I do think they're going to start to open non-essential retail from the beginning of June, but whether that means department stores, whether it means fashion retailers, whether it means sports retailers, we're not really sure of the cadence of the opening yet, whether they're just going to sort of blanket allow everybody to open at the same time. From a consumer perspective, it's going to be really interesting because some consumers haven't ventured out the house yet, which I'll talk about later. For those of us that have and have been to grocery retail, we're going to experience something similar where we're queuing outside the store, we're 2 meters apart. When we go in, they're going to limit the number of consumers that are allowed in to the stores at any one time. And if you follow the customer journey, it's going to have an implication in terms of how the retailers and what the retailers need to do to look after the store and ensure that it's a completely safe environment for customers.
It's an interesting one, you know, just thinking about clothes shopping, because normally you'd go into a store, try something on. Are people really are they going to be wanting to do that because someone else might have tried it on before them? That's
a great question. I've conducted some research, recently of 1,900 consumers, and the research told me that 30% were still happy to go into a changing room, but around 35% wouldn't go to a changing room but would in the future. So the question is, from a retailer perspective, that means that you're probably going to see less footfall coming into that fashion retail store in the first place, which means they're going to have to look at other ways of engaging with consumers, maybe sending to their home, allowing them to try before they buy, or building up the online side of their business again to allow consumers to, try on in the comfort of their own home.
And what about people that work in the shops? How are things going to change for them moving forward?
Sure. Well, I mean, the government has been asking retailers to undertake risk assessments. And it's a very nervy time for you if you've been on furlough and all of a sudden you're going to be going back into your normal workplace. Things like working in groups of teams where you work with the same people every day, so you minimise the risk of any infection. Again, sanitisation, cleaning your hands, frequently throughout the course of the day. I think they're going to have to stagger how the staff come in and out of the store. They're going to want to, they're going to want to keep places like the canteen, for example, and the back office, clear as much as possible. So they'll have to stagger when people have their lunch breaks, how people use the toilet. There's a lot of practical things to think about in order to keep staff safe in that environment.
It's very complicated, isn't it? I mean, one of the things that I notice is that I would not describe myself as an enthusiastic shopper. Like lots of men, I have one serviceable pair of trousers at a time. But there is still a thing where going to the shops is a bit of a journey, isn't it? It's a sort of nice, it's an excuse for a trip out, and I do slightly miss that. Is our behaviour going to change with regard to shopping?
Well, I'll tell you something, I can't wait for the garden centres to open. That's a day out, isn't it? In terms of what we've not been able to do for the last 2 months.
If you can fight past Angela Rippon, it is.
Well, exactly. We're going to hear about that later. But I'm looking forward to that. Consumer behaviour is definitely going to change. Of the research that I undertook, 93% of customers said that they would be comfortable going to a retail park or their local shops. But that means that 93% of them are not that comfortable going to a major city centre like Glasgow, London, Newcastle, Manchester, Dublin, Cardiff, wherever. So that's going to have big implications for retailers in terms of how they decide to open the stores, where and when. And in terms of how we're going to get there, most of us are saying we're going to travel by our own steam because we're not that confident getting onto public transport. So we're going to go in our own cars, which also lends itself more to the kind of retail park environment, or going on foot to our local retailers.
And in terms of this, you kind of categorise people's behaviours into 3 groups, didn't you?
I do. So what we found is there's really 3 key types of behaviour that we can see from the research. There's one group who I think, having been cooped up now for the period of time they are, can't wait to get out there, desperate to go shopping. Maybe you've been stuck indoors with a young family. You know, the first thing you're going to want to do is get out and about. The biggest group is a more cautious group of consumers, and I think that they will mainly stay and shop locally. I'd probably fall into that category. And then sadly, there's another group who have been probably fairly traumatized by this event. Many consumers haven't even stepped over the threshold of their apartment, their house over the last 2 months, even to take exercise. Such has been the impact of this. So I think it's going to take some time for them, for their behaviour to change and to have the confidence to go back out into the physical retail world.
Really fascinating stuff.
It's interesting, isn't it? It's going to be a huge adjustment for everyone, I think, and lots of people trying to manage their risks. Martin, that's massively helpful. Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you.
It's time now to catch up with our Angela. Angela, just picking up on that, do you miss popping out to the shops?
Not really, I don't think. But I am glad that they're going to be opening up again. I mean, it's not called retail therapy for nothing, is it? Because it is a great therapy for a lot of people, you know, to go and just sort of rifle through everything. But just thinking back to last Friday when we all got dolled up, because for an awful lot of people, what's the point of buying new stuff? Because you'll be all dressed up and nowhere to go. And also, I think, you know, quite a few people are going to be worried about the finances of this. But maybe, you know, buy themselves something as a little treat after having been locked up for 6 or 7 weeks. But the shops or the stores that I'm really pleased are going to be opening from today are the nurseries and the garden centres. I can't wait to get out there. I know, I can't wait. My little garden here in London is very green at the moment because there's lots of sort of shrubs, but not a lot of plants. And the azaleas are over, so I can't wait to get some bedding plants to give a little bit of colour to my garden.